In this video, we are going to be covering what's going on in the markets, some of the most interesting projects that have recently minted, as well as some up and coming under the radar projects you definitely don't want to miss out on. And by the way, if you are interested in learning about NFTs and NFT marketing, we're actually doing a live class within the Parallax Discord all about how to market your NFTs, whether you're doing a private group or a small community with low supply, or if you're doing, a lot of supply and you're doing free mint and things like that. So we're going to break down all the top strategies by some of the hottest projects right now in today's meta that is working. So if you're interested in that, you definitely got to pick up a Parallax Genesis, because this live class is only going to be for holders as one of our educational utilities. So make sure to check it out on Opensea, the Parallax Genesis, if you want to learn more about NFT marketing. And we're going to be hosting these educational events every week or every other week as well. Now, before we go ahead and get started, make sure to give this video a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And let's go ahead and dive right in. So right off the bat, the first thing we are going to be covering is going to be the market sentiment. So for the most part, the markets have been trading sideways. Ethereum at that 1.6, 1.7 level, nothing new. We've seen this before. And the fear and greed index, according to alternative.me, is going to be a 31. So I guess the market, according to this, is feeling a little bit more bullish. People are kind of getting interested in mints again. I would say 2 weeks ago, nobody wanted to mint anything. Free mints were dead. But I see some up and coming projects where people are excited. There's some potential in it. And so there's definitely a market sentiment that's coming back up. But then again, we are also in a bear market. So it is very difficult to mint in general. People have to switch up their strategies. And we will talk about that in this video. Now, the first project that we are going to be talking about is going to be a new one that I recently discovered, and it's going to be called Yin Yang Gang, also known as YYG, not YGG, but YYG. So Yin Yang Gang was essentially started by a couple different founders who have kind of their own projects, their own things going on, and they got together to create this project. Some of the core team is going to be Mason Ghost, who has a pretty big following on Twitter, and pretty much like any Twitter giveaway that he does on his page, pretty much like blows up and gets lots of likes and retweets, and he's got his own Discord and things like that. We also have CryptoPal over here. I do not know too much about CryptoPal, but he's part of this team as well. And there's another core contributor, and that's going to be Nomad. And from what I understand, Nomad is the project lead on this project called Disto Inc. And they do already have a collection, so this is not his first collection. He has launched collections before, and it seems like Disto Apes are going to be at a 0.19 floor during a bear market, which is not bad actually. I mean, I'm sure there's more holders. I think they're staking and earning tokens, but it's interesting to see why someone already has a project that's like Pixel project, and they're doing another project with another group of people. So it's interesting to see, because I'm not trying to hate on anybody, but every time you kind of split your attention and start multiple projects, it's kind of like, well, what happened to the first one, right? For me, that's always a red flag when people start multiple projects. I did listen a little bit to some AMAs, and then it seems like some of the team members have started or have been involved in launching multiple projects. So that is something you definitely want to think about before you start minting. But at the other end, with these guys coming together, I would also say that they are probably pretty good at driving hype, getting people interested, because they have experience launching projects in the past. So, launching a project is very different from building a project. I'm not saying they're bad or good at building a project. I'm just saying that they're good at launching projects. Yin Yang Gang is definitely hitting the meta in terms of, putting up concept art, not necessarily the PFP, but concept art over here of kind of what they represent, the vibe and everything they're going for. And then, the cryptic messaging as usual, more of that over here. And they have shown their PFP. PFP actually looks pretty good for pixel art. Personally, I like it. And I mean, it's a recent project that recently just started doing marketing on Twitter, but so far they've been doing pretty good. And I think they have been doing a good job in using their social channels and their connections to kind of get the right people to talk about it and build out that hype. And one thing that I found interesting is that in the description of the Yin Yang Gang, the first thing they say is the revolution is upon us. Again, cryptic messaging that gets people interested. And the second thing is whitelist equals free mint. So it definitely does attract a certain type of demographic. If somebody believes that, okay, this is very hype, you have all these people who are experienced in NFTs going to launch a project, and if you are able to get a whitelist, it's a free mint, meaning that you can sell it for a profit instantly, then of course, a lot of people are going to jump on this. And my guess is that they're going to incentivize people to, comment, retweet, and stuff like that in order to get into the Discord, in order to get the whitelist. That's how the game goes. One can call it grinding, one can call it just being a participant, whatever you want to call it. But I'm pretty sure they leverage those strategies on top of using their following, which is not a bad thing, right? So if you're interested in a hot mint that a lot of people probably will be talking about, Yin Yang Gang is something that I would put on your radar. Now, real quick, I kind of want to share with you the sentiment of what's going on in the NFT space worldwide. Now, when you type in NFTs NFTs into Google Trends, what is essentially happening is that in January, which was the peak of the bull run for NFTs, at least when it comes to search volume, which was very hot at the time, I remember that, we kind of been falling off this like slope, right? So there's like a big drop over here, and then there's another big drop. So right now it's like people have been not very interested in NFTs the most actually over the past 12 months. We've seen, you know, YouTube volume search to go down, volume across the board going down, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I started getting into NFTs around a year ago, actually in August, September. So, you know, the interest is around similar to what it was before, I guess. But back then it was like everything was going up like crazy. You buy anything, it goes going up like 5x, 10x, whatever. But right now, things are going down pretty hard, but this might be an opportunity to get into some good projects if you believe that the crypto market is going to continue to pull through. Looking even further back, when we look at the beginning of 2021, like back then there was like nothing, no interest in that. And I remember seeing the first videos pop up about CryptoPunks in like February and March. So yeah, we're around that same level of compared to before. And you have to understand that everything comes in cycles. It goes up and down. And right now we're just kind of in a down cycle. So what I did is I typed in crypto, just like crypto in general, and just kind of see the demand over it. You know, during 2017 when there was a bull run, yes, there was a lot of hype, and then it kind of died off, and then for years it was just like nothing really going on, and then it completely exploded pretty much in the beginning of 2021, obviously during the pandemic and everything like that. Right now, yeah, everything's kind of on this downtrend, and it's possible that we might trade, like be down and trade sideways for a while. It's definitely possible. Maybe there's a pump later on, you know, but in general, you have to understand that I think people have to build during a bear market, and it might last longer than we expect. Maybe it'll pump up or whatever, right? Maybe you have these mini pumps and it'll go down, but for the most part, you have to understand that's the market that we're in. You can't expect everything to go up forever, right? That doesn't mean I'm bearish on the NFT market. I think NFTs are just getting started. I think that if you look at the horizon over 5 years, I think it will consistently grow over time. It's just, you know, markets move in cycles and you have to respect that. All right, next project that we are going to be talking about is going to be Jenkins Yacht Valet. Now, this project is quite interesting. It recently came on my radar, where it's pretty much a startup. It's not just one person doing this, it's a whole team, and it's written by 10 times New York bestseller Neil Strauss, right? Bored and Dangerous is going to be like, it's taking the Bored Ape IP and writing like this visual novel kind of story with it. So if you go on Opensea right now for this particular NFT, the floor price is going to be 0.6, which is not too bad. And then they're also like launching multiple NFTs which play into this whole ecosystem and game theory of like how this works. And you know, for me, I like the people who use the word game theory. It's like I don't really like it because it almost feels like gambling, but you know, it is what it is. But essentially what's going to happen is, like with this project, they're going to create more projects out of it. So like, for example, you're going to burn your book, and for the ability to purchase the Azure root secret item for 0.08 ETH. So I guess the burn your book in order to mint. So the project over here is this project over here, and it's kind of like a visual novel, right? So if you go into their page over here, you know, you enter and then you're going to go to these different places. So it's literally, it feels like a visual novel, and then you like click around and you read a story, right? And it's not really fully fleshed out, but you know, members who hold the NFT are going to be able to participate in how the story goes. I don't want to go too deep into the specifics of it because I would pretty much take like a 30-minute video, but essentially you can burn a book, you can stake your book, you get some tokens. It's kind of like, well, will those tokens be valuable in the future? Hard to say, but yeah, it's definitely an interesting experiment. And then for Tally Labs, I did do some research into this project. You know, it seems like they're kind of like a studio that has been creating like different stuff, doing experimental ideas. Maybe they might want to learn with these projects and then do another project in the future, right? But one thing that particularly caught my eye is that they've been going pretty hard for a while. So like if we go into their Medium page, so it's Jenkins the Valet. So in September 23rd, 2021, CCA, which is one of the largest, you know, creative artist agencies, one of the largest agencies that represents like movie stars and things like that, they actually signed with Jenkins the Valet. So this is not something that they just launched randomly. This is something that they've been working on for like almost a year at this point, right? Probably more than a year, in trying to make this like IP into something. So it's a very interesting use case of like really taking a Bored Ape and like building an entire story and company around them and building NFTs on top of that. So it's not only like the Bored Ape is going to be the mascot, but they're creating more NFTs for these books that you can burn, that you can stake, and things like that. So it's an interesting experiment. We don't even know if it's going to work or not, but it's good to see people pushing forward in the space and showing what these things can do. And again, it's like, it's very speculative. Like you don't know if you will make money or lose money doing all of this. Maybe everything becomes worthless. Maybe it becomes like super valuable. Who knows? But it's interesting indeed to follow along. The next project we're going to talk about is going to be one that's been out for a while. It's going to be Worldwide Webb. But recently, the latest news is that they recently did a partnership announcement with Immutable and Starkware. And it seems like they're doing this whole like 3D metaverse kind of vibe, right? So if you looked at Worldwide Web before, it's kind of like this 2D pixelated kind of thing, and they just integrate different NFT projects and put them in, which was, you know, kind of novel at the time. And then now it seems like they're going 3D. How is this going to work? There's not too much details on it. I'm not sure how they're going to put it together. Maybe they're going to outsource it, just like how other sides, they outsource all the development work to another company. Could be something like that, because it's not easy to build, especially if the experience is in 2D. They're going to be building on a layer 2, immutable, and Starkware is for like scaling. I mean, I'm not too like versed in how Starkware works, but it's going to be interesting to see what they plan to do in the future. And I do believe, looking into it, let's see, they're saying that with their new partnerships, they're going to enable 8,000 players to access gas-free NFT trading on Immutable X. So like the Immutable X is already working, right? And it seems like they are going to be building an MMORPG. Interesting news for sure, but I think it's going to take a long time to build, because it's like they just announced this. MMORPGs, if you create one really quick, you know, 1 year, but it's not even good, right? So it's going to take years. So I'm not really sure why they want to build an MMORPG, or maybe I don't have the right information, because I would imagine it would be easier just to allow companies to create their own experiences within World Wide Web. But hey, who knows? Maybe that's a strategy to like onboard new people if the game is actually good, right? I think right now in the whole NFT space, the whole idea of like selling land and then MMORPG is kind of played out, in my opinion, because nobody has delivered on that, and it just makes me a little skeptical in some senses, right? I'm not saying it's a bad project. I'm just saying that, you know, I would love to learn more about it to see what their plans are. In other news, Vitalik over here, you know, recently just put up an idea where, you know, you're going to be able to send NFTs to a specific individual without anyone seeing who the new owner is, which I think is a good thing, because, you know, a lot of people have mixed feelings about this. Some people are like, oh, like if it's on the blockchain, then like you shouldn't hide anything, right? But at the same time, it's like, well, you know, do you want your bank account to be shown to the public? And not everybody wants that, because it's kind of weird, right? Because everyone like knows how much money you have, they know what NFTs you have, they see you on the street, maybe they rob you, you know, something like that, something crazy, who knows, right? Especially if you're living in like certain countries where those things can happen. I think definitely the crypto space needs privacy. I think people should have the option, and this is just my philosophical beliefs, and you can disagree, that's totally fine, but I feel like people should have the option, right? Like if you want to go full transparent and be like, you know, we're going to show you all our financials, we're going to show you how much we get paid, yeah, great, go ahead and do that. There's technology that allows for that, absolutely great. You can probably do that with a regular bank account as well, you know. But if you want to be more private about your money and be for safety reasons or for any other reason, then I think there should be an option to do that. Now, you know, you could argue that you can just send money to a, you know, centralized exchange, and then it kind of gets mixed up with anything, and then you can send it to another wallet. Yeah, that works as well. But with NFTs, it's different because, you know, you can't like send NFTs to a centralized exchange at the moment. But yeah, I think this is a good step forward for people who want more privacy in the space. Now, in other news, Metamask recently launched a new feature where it's going to allow you to be able to see what's going on in Metamask. You know, in the previous old version of Metamask, what happened was that when you're signing something, you don't even know what you're signing. You're kind of hoping, crossing your fingers and saying like, okay, I hope that this person doesn't scam me. I hope this free degen mint is not gonna like steal all my stuff. But now they're creating more features where they're like, all right, let's just put it in plain text what's actually gonna happen when you sign. So I actually like this a lot more. I've been saying like, dude, we definitely need this, but now they made it more easier, and this is gonna help onboard new people and hopefully prevent people from getting scammed, because it's like, it's really unfortunate that it's very difficult to read. We have come a far way compared to like, you know, where we were like years ago, but there's definitely a lot of room for improvement, and I think this is one step closer to mainstream adoption. Now, something random I recently checked out is that the MVP NFT by 9gag, this is where everybody blindly sent like, I think 3 or 5 Ethereum, I forgot the exact number, is now worth 37 Ethereum, which is actually pretty crazy. So I think it's really a testament, you know, when I look at this, I think it's really a testament to like having low supply and having the right people in the room that will never want to sell, because you could even see like the trading volume is at 1.1k, right? And like people are buying this, you know, every other day, and the, you know, that's like, it's like 50k for one of these right now, right? I think, you know, during a bear market, what's going to happen, a trend, is that a lot of companies that want to get into Web3 or launch their NFT projects, they're probably going to do low supply. Like for example, the Parallax NFT is a low supply, and I say low supply as in under 1,000, and then other projects are probably going to do more low supply as well, because, you know, you definitely can sell an NFT at a little bit of a higher price at a lower supply because it's lower supply, right? So you kind of get that. And then also, if you get people that don't want to sell, then, you know, the value of your thing goes up, and then maybe in the future when you want to launch a second project, just like how 9gag is going to do, then it makes it easier to sell, right? So for example, if 9gag does this low supply Genesis collection, in a sense 37 for ETH, they're like, okay, well, anything they put out will probably be of value, right? Because they know how to market. And then they're going to have the potatoes, which is going to be at 1.29 Ethereum floor for a free mint. So this is quite a successful free mint. And then they're going to do the real collection. So it's like, you know, I think 9gag is doing a pretty good job from a perspective of Web 2 going into Web 3 and doing it very natively. And actually they're crushing it in all regards in terms of floor price, at least. So I think in the future, we're going to see a lot more of like Genesis, supply, collection, low supply, and then using that momentum to build future collections if that's what people do, especially during a bear market, right? Because it's like if you come out with 10K off the bat, it's very difficult to maintain a floor price. And if you can't maintain, floor goes down, the project's dead. But if you start small, start with a little seed, hold the floor price, build a core community of a few hundred people, you can use something with that and build thousands over time. And so with that said, that is everything we got to cover for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give this video a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because we're also going to be coming out with a brand new interview later on sometime next week or the week after with Valet, who has been doing a very private invite whitelist process, and I'm very curious to learn more about that. So if you're interested in that, make sure to turn on notifications, and I will see you in the next one.